The word thug has gotten a lot of media attention this week. We first heard it from Baltimore's Mayor Stephanie Rawlings Blake, Maryland Governor Larry Hogan, and even from President Obama when they described the rioters who looted several businesses and set fires across Baltimore Monday night.
Too many people have spent generations building up this city for it to be destroyed by thugs.
This is lawless gangs of thugs roaming the streets, causing damage to property and injuring innocent people.
You've got some of the same organizers now going back into these communities to try to clean up in the aftermath of a handful of protesters, a handful of criminals and thugs who tore up the place.
And we saw the word surface on Twitter. The word thug appeared in roughly 50,000 tweets on Monday, like this tweet from Donald Trump. Our great African-American president hasn't exactly had a positive impact on the thugs who are so happily and openly destroying Baltimore. But there's also been a lot of criticism for using the word. Take a listen to Fox News' Megyn Kelly and CNN's Aaron Burnett pushing their guests to define the protesters.
They threw cement blocks at firefighters who were trying to save the neighborhood. I'm thinking thugs is not far off the mark. Am I wrong?
I think not far off the mark is 6 police officers putting an uncharged man into a police officer. I'm answering you, but you don't want dialogue. I'm trying to have a conversation with you.
You're trying to talk about somebody else's behavior.
I'm giving you an opinion that you don't like.
That behavior.
They know it's wrong to steal and burn down a CVS and an old person's home. I mean, come on.
Come on. So calling them thugs, just call them. No, we don't have to call them by names such as that.
Ooh, just call them niggas. This is getting good.
So is the T word the new N word? And should people in the media use it or avoid it? Why do words and pictures, for that matter so much? Why has thug become such a loaded word?
Listen, I think what the Baltimore City Councilman Carl Stokes was trying to tell Aaron Burnett is that thug is a proxy, is a word that we use instead of the N word. And I think that's really true. I can't think of a situation where there's ever been a headline or someone has called a white young person who's in the middle of a violent protest demonstration, whatever, a thug. We use it all the time when we're talking about people in the inner city. And so, I mean, listen, here, I randomly grabbed a bunch of headlines. San Francisco Giants World Series marred by violence. The word thug doesn't come up at all, by the way, but they're talking about baseball fans marred by shootings and fires and arrests. Ohio State football revelers, mostly white, by the way, this is back in January, screaming in delight, set nearly 90 fires, tear down a goalpost, blah, 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 blah. We never describe them as thugs in that headline.
But Soledad, I looked the word up in a bunch of different dictionaries, and no place did I find a racial connection.
No, and obviously, right?
And the African-American mayor of the city and the African-American president of the United States used the word.
So
if it's the equivalent of the N-word, how does that work?
Right, well, doesn't necessarily mean that they don't have a specific agenda and how they're using it.
Okay, so check it out. She says it doesn't mean that they don't have an agenda. So I'm going to let Soledad go ahead and finish and handle the media aspect and why journalists shouldn't be using it, right? But I want to talk real quickly about what she's alluding to discuss what the agenda truly is with the president of the United States, an African-American president who was overwhelmingly brought into office by people who look just like him and look just like the people that he's now referring to as thugs, and why that's important. And let me start by giving an example, right? In Vietnam, the U.S. soldiers were taught to call and trained to call the Viet Cong gooks. There's a reason for them using the word gooks, because gooks is a dehumanizing term, right? Gooks is a thing. It's not a human. It justifies the behavior and the treatment of a thing because it's an object. It's not a human. So that helped train the psychology of the soldier so that he would be willing to do things to a gook that he wasn't willing to do to a Viet Cong or to a human being. Right? So that's why those terms are injected into the vernacular so that they can, it's a dehumanizing act. It's a dehumanizing measure. And if you look closely, Obama said protesters at first, but then he went back and made sure that he changed the vernacular because he knows what I know, which is that this is not the last one that's going to happen. And so what he's trying to do is get in front of the narrative by creating the idea that anybody that comes against the state is a non-human. They are a thug, and a thug can be dealt with any way you choose. Their rights do not have to be adhered to, right? They are objects that can then be tossed and arrested and sprayed in any manner you so choose because they're thugs. It's not by accident that the governor, the mayor, and the president are all using these terms.
So what are the words journalists should be using to describe the people who are out on the street? Let me challenge you on that, though, Soledad, because wouldn't the protesters, people who have been going out of their way on the streets of Baltimore in peaceful protest,
right? Those would be peaceful protesters.
To you using the words that they're protesters who are throwing the rocks and bottles?
I think there's violent protesters. I think there's peaceful protesters. I think there's drunk protesters. I think there's angry protesters. I think when you look specifically about how the word riot is used and the word thug is used, it's always used around people of color, specifically in an inner city context. And again, I can't tell you how the black mayor does it or the president of the United States chooses to use the word.
And you see, the fact that it was African Americans that started off coining this term inside of the Baltimore protest is a stroke of evil genius and is used to disarm the argument that it's racist. Can't be racist. The president used it, the mayor used it, so it can't be racist. So I'm just, Megan Fox of Fox News, I'm just echoing what our African American president has said about these people. Do you see how Obama created a veneer for racist attitudes? And this is why people like Cornel West talk about that Obama has been the more effective evil face of European domination.
Damn, that boy can sing. You must be crazy. He good. You must be crazy.